May 27, 1953, Tiruchi, South India. A public meeting, a large crowd gathered in the open air. A man in his 70s steps forward, holding a small clay idol of Ganesha, one of the most widely worshipped gods in the country. In front of everyone, he breaks it. A police case is filed against him that same week. It's later dismissed by the courts. But the image sticks, a man in his 70s, calmly, deliberately, smashing a god in public. Most people who've heard of Periyar know him as a reformer, the man who fought caste, championed women's rights, and gave millions of Tamils a new sense of dignity. All of that is true. What's rarely taught is the rest of it, the accusations and the debate that still hasn't been settled about whether his war on one religion crossed into something else entirely. E.V. Ramasamy was born in 1879 in Erode, in the Madras Presidency, into a prosperous merchant family. He had only about 5 years of formal schooling before joining his father's business at 12. The moment that changed everything happened in 1904, on a pilgrimage to the holy city of Kashi, where Periyar was turned away from a rest house he personally funded, because the building was reserved for Brahmins only. He ended up eating leftover food on the street outside a building he had helped pay for. He later said this single humiliation was what turned him from a believer into an atheist, and reshaped how he saw the entire caste system and religion. This is the part of Periyar's life that gets taught, when he's taught at all. He joined the Indian National Congress, rose to lead the Madras Presidency Congress Committee, and in the mid-1920s took part in the Vaikom Satyagraha, a protracted protest for the right of lower caste people to simply walk on public roads near a temple in Travancore. He was jailed twice for it, and earned a title that's still used today, Hero of Vaikom. Out of that came the Self-Respect Movement, a program built around eradicating caste, rejecting priestly authority, promoting women's property and divorce rights, and pioneering self-respect marriages with no priest, no Sanskrit chanting, no religious ritual at all. In 1925, Periyar broke from Congress and Gandhi. The trigger was small, a Congress-run school where Brahmin and non-Brahmin students ate at separate tables. For Periyar, it confirmed something larger. Congress talked anti-colonialism but stayed indifferent to caste. What followed is genuinely disputed. Periyar aligned with the Justice Party, which had governed with British backing for over a decade. In the 1940s, he pushed for an independent Dravidian nation and sought British recognition for it, even calling India's 1947 independence a day of mourning, since power, he argued, was just passing to upper caste elites. To critics, this looked like collaboration. To defenders, it was never pro-British, just anti-Congress, insisting political freedom meant nothing without ending caste. The idol breaking in Tiruchi wasn't a one-off. 3 years later, in 1956, Periyar organized a public burning of images of the god Rama on Chennai's Marina Beach. He was arrested. Roughly 890 of his followers were detained alongside him. His argument was specific. He considered the Ramayana itself a piece of what he called Aryan propaganda, a story, in his reading, that cast southern Dravidian people as literal demons to justify northern Brahminical dominance. He'd written entire books making this case years before the burning happened. This is where the debate about Periyar gets hardest to resolve cleanly. His slogans, some still inscribed on his statues today, declared there was no God at all, and mocked anyone who believed otherwise. His critics point to speeches where he called for the outright elimination of Brahmins as a group, not just the caste system they represented. His defenders argue his real target was always Brahmanism, the ideology of ritual hierarchy, and note that he was equally harsh toward non-Brahmins who internalized casteism against those below them. In 1948, at around 70 years old, Periyar married Maniammai, his much younger personal assistant, in her 20s. He said publicly that it was a legal necessity. The law at the time didn't allow him to make an unmarried woman his heir. The backlash inside his own movement was immediate. Periyar had spent decades campaigning against exploitative marriages and enormous age gaps. Now here he was, in one himself, and worse, from the perspective of his senior lieutenants, he announced that Manoharan would succeed him as head of the entire organization, bypassing men who had spent their whole careers building it alongside him. Within a year, two of his closest colleagues, CN Rajadurai and EVK Sampath, broke away entirely and founded a new party of their own, the DMK. Historians note the marriage wasn't the only reason for the split. There were real strategic disagreements too, particularly over whether the movement should ever contest elections, but the marriage was the spark that made the break public and permanent. The party that split off from Periyar, the DMK, and later the AIADMK that split from it, went on to dominate Tamil Nadu's politics for the rest of the century. But to win elections at scale, both parties quietly dropped the parts of Periyar's ideology that couldn't survive contact with a ballot box: the outright atheism, the demand for a separate Dravidian nation, the harder edges of his anti-religious rhetoric. What survived was a curated version: social justice, reservation politics, Tamil pride, useful, popular, and much easier to build a party platform on than a man who once called Independence Day a day of mourning. Outside Tamil Nadu, almost none of this made it into the national conversation at all. Periyar remains, to most of India, a regional footnote, not because his ideas were minor, but because nobody outside one state had an incentive to teach the complicated version. Two political parties still argue over who really owns his legacy. Neither one talks much about all of it. Picture that crowd in Tiruchi again. 1953, an old man breaking a small clay god in front of hundreds of people, calmly, on purpose. We remember the reformer who fought for dignity. We're far less comfortable remembering the man who called freedom a day of mourning, split his own movement over a marriage, and never quite let historians agree on where his war on one religion actually ended. That discomfort isn't a flaw in the story. It's the story.